3 months into my residency at this remote facility, I'd grown accustomed to the night shift's peculiar rhythm. The soft beeping of monitors, the squeak of my shoes against freshly waxed linoleum, the occasional muffled conversation from the nurse's station. Tonight was particularly quiet. A spring storm had washed out the only road connecting our hospital to the nearest town, leaving us more isolated than usual. I found comfort in the routine. Check vitals, review charts, adjust medications. The mundane choreography of medicine grounded me. The sound from my pager broke my reverie, and it was Nurse Abernathy's. "Could you come to room 307? Mrs. Winters is showing some unusual readings." I made my way down the corridor, passing the empty nurse's station. Strange, Abernathy should have been there. The hallway seemed longer tonight, the overhead lights casting shadows that pooled in corners where they hadn't before. I attributed it to fatigue. 40 hours on shift does things to perception. Room 307 was dark when I entered. The monitoring equipment glowed with reassuring normalcy. Mrs. Winters is breathing deep and even. I checked her chart, finding nothing unusual in her vitals or medication schedule. "Nurse Abernathy?" I called softly, stepping back into the hallway. No response. My pager remained silent when I tried to reach her. The small device felt unusually cold against my palm, almost as if it had been left in a freezer. I dismissed the thought and continued my rounds, making a mental note to ask about the page when I saw Abernathy next. It was during my examination of Mr. Kaplan in 312 that I first noticed something was wrong. His chart indicated he'd been admitted for pneumonia, yet the diagnostic notes referenced a cardiac condition. I flipped through the pages, certain I'd misread something, but the inconsistency remained. More troubling was the signature at the bottom, Dr. Ellison, a name I didn't recognize. "Mr. Kaplan," I said, "who was treating you before me?" The elderly man looked at me with confusion. "You've been my doctor since I arrived, Dr. Chen." I nodded, smiling reassuringly despite my unease. The hospital employed only 4 physicians. I knew them all. The corridor seemed dimmer when I left the room. The distance between overhead lights somehow greater. A subtle scent hung in the air, antiseptic layered over something earthier, like wet soil after rain. I attributed it to the storm, to water seeping through the aging building's foundation. At the nurse's station, I found not Abernathy, but Martinez, his eyes fixed on a computer screen. "Martinez, did you see Nurse Abernathy? She paged me about Mrs. Winters, but when I got there, Abernathy?" He looked up, brow furrowed. "She's not on tonight. Just you, me, and Dawson in the West Wing." I showed him my pager with the message clearly displayed. Martinez studied it, then handed it back with a shrug. "System glitch, maybe? Happens with the old equipment, especially during storms." I nodded, though something cold settled in my stomach. "Right, probably. You look beat, Doc. Take a break. I'll call if anything comes up." The break room was empty, the coffee in the pot burnt and bitter. I poured a cup anyway, needing the caffeine more than flavor. The hospital intercom crackled, startling me. I expected an announcement, a code call, something routine. Instead, there was only static, followed by what sounded like breathing, slow, deliberate inhalations and exhalations, as if someone were sleeping with their mouth pressed against the microphone. Then, barely audible beneath the static, "Doctor." Not my name, just doctor. I left the break room, suddenly eager to be among patients, among evidence of normality. The hallway stretched before me, the light fixtures casting pools of illumination that seemed farther apart than before. Between them, the shadows had deepened to an unnatural density. Room 307 drew me back like a magnet. Mrs. Winters lay as before, sleeping peacefully. I checked her monitors. Normal. Her chart, consistent. I was turning to leave when I noticed something on the window, condensation, forming patterns that resembled handprints, as if someone had pressed their palms against the glass from the outside. We were on the 3rd floor. I approached the window slowly. As I stared, the condensation began to evaporate, the marks fading before my eyes. A soft sound behind me, the rustle of bedsheets. I turned to find Mrs. Winters sitting upright, eyes open but unfocused. "Mrs. Winters, are you all right?" She didn't look at me, her gaze fixed on the window. "It wants in," she whispered. "It's been waiting so long." "What wants in?" I approached her bedside, medical training taking over. "Mrs. Winters, you're having a dream. Let me help you lie back down." Her hand shot out, gripping my wrist with surprising strength. Her skin felt cold, almost waxy. Her eyes finally met mine, pupils dilated to near-perfect circles. A chill ran through me. The overhead lights flickered, and Mrs. Winters' eyes rolled back. She collapsed against her pillows, resuming the deep, even breathing of sleep. I checked her vitals, normal as if nothing had happened. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall, heart racing. Sleep deprivation, I told myself again. Stress, the isolation of the storm. Rational explanations existed for everything. The pager malfunction, the chart inconsistency, the condensation patterns, Mrs. Winters' sleep talking. Yet as I made my way toward the West Wing to find Dawson, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The sensation prickled along my spine, raising the fine hairs on my neck. I found myself glancing over my shoulder, expecting to see someone or something in the corridor behind me. The West Wing doors were locked when I reached them. I swiped my ID card repeatedly, but the security panel remained red. Through the small windows, I could see the hallway beyond was dark. If Dawson was there, he was working without lights. My pager chirped. A message from Martinez. Need you in basement, emergency. The basement housed our morgue and storage. We rarely went down there during night shifts unless absolutely necessary. I took the service elevator, the ancient mechanism groaning as it descended. The temperature dropped noticeably with each floor until my breath fogged in the air before me. The doors opened to darkness. I fumbled for the light switch, finding it after several seconds of blind searching. The fluorescent sputtered to life, revealing the long corridor of storage rooms. The morgue lay at the far end, its doors closed. Martinez? My voice echoed, distorted by the concrete walls. No answer. I moved forward, each step echoing hollowly. The smell was stronger here, antiseptic and earth, with a metallic undertone that reminded me of blood. A rational part of my mind recognized it as the normal scent of a hospital basement. Cleaning chemicals, dampness, the faint residue of formaldehyde. The morgue doors stood partially open when I reached them, a sliver of darkness between. No light came from within. Martinez, I called again, pushing the door wider. Are you in here? The room beyond was pitch black. I reached for the light switch, my fingers brushing cold tile before finding the plastic toggle. I flipped it. Nothing happened. I was about to retreat when I heard it. The same slow, deliberate breathing I'd heard over the intercom. It came from inside the darkened room, just beyond my field of vision. Who's there? My voice sounded thin, strained. Martinez, if this is some kind of joke, doctor. The voice was directly behind me. I spun around, heart hammering to find the corridor empty. Run, something inside me urged. Run now. I backed away from the morgue, then turned and moved quickly toward the elevator. The lights continued to flicker, each momentary darkness lasting longer than the one before. In the brief illumination between, I caught glimpses of something moving along the walls. A darkness deeper than shadow, flowing like liquid. The elevator doors were closed when I reached them. I jabbed the call button repeatedly, glancing over my shoulder. The corridor behind me was now more dark than light, the fluorescence failing in sequence from the far end toward where I stood. Come on, I whispered, pressing the button harder. Come on! A soft ping, and the doors slid open. I practically fell inside, hammering the button for the main floor. As the doors began to close, I saw it, a figure standing at the far end of the corridor, silhouetted against the last functioning light. It was the shape of a woman, but wrong, too tall, limbs too long, head tilted at an impossible angle. And though I couldn't see its face clearly, I sensed it was smiling. The doors closed. The elevator began its ascent, agonizingly slow. I pressed myself against the back wall, breath coming in short gasps. My pager was cold in my pocket, so cold it burned against my thigh through the fabric. When the doors opened on the main floor, I stumbled out into the hallway, nearly colliding with Martinez. Whoa, Doc? He steadied me. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. The basement, I managed. You paged me? What? No, I've been right here all night. He showed me his pager. System's been down since the storm hit. No messages in or out. I pulled out my pager. The screen was blank, battery dead. Listen, I said, lowering my voice. Have you noticed anything strange tonight? Anything at all? Martinez studied me, concern evident. Like what? The charts in 312 are wrong. And there was something in Mrs. Winters' room, on the window, in the basement. I stopped, aware of how I must sound. Dr. Chen, when was the last time you slept? Really slept? I couldn't remember. Days, maybe? Look, he said gently. Go lie down in the on-call room. I'll handle things for a few hours. I nodded, suddenly exhausted beyond measure. The on-call room was just down the hall, its small cot beckoning with the promise of oblivion. Thanks, I said. Just wake me if... Of course, Dr. Chen. Sleep well. The on-call room was dimly lit, the small desk lamp casting a warm glow that contrasted with the harsh fluorescence outside. I collapsed onto the cot without removing my shoes, too tired to care about propriety. As consciousness began to slip away, I heard the intercom crackle once more. Through the haze of encroaching sleep, a voice, soft, feminine, familiar in a way I couldn't place. Thank you, doctor, it whispered, for opening the door. My eyes snapped open. The room was darker now, the desk lamp dimmed to a faint amber glow. In the corner, a shadow moved against the wall, rising, stretching, taking form. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. My limbs felt leaden, my tongue frozen in my mouth. The shadow continued to rise, unfurling like smoke into the shape of a woman. Not a woman. In a uniform from decades past. She turned toward me, and though I still couldn't see her face clearly, I knew she was smiling. Knew her name too, though I'd never met her. Ellison. The night shift is so lonely, she said, her voice the same I'd heard over the intercom. I'm glad you called for me. It's been so long since anyone remembered my name. She glided toward the cot, her movements fluid yet wrong, as if her joints bent in directions human anatomy didn't allow. The temperature plummeted, my breath clouding before me. You should sleep now, doctor, she whispered, looming over me. I will take over the shift now. I tried to scream, but no sound emerged. The last thing I saw before darkness claimed me was her face, finally clear in the dying light. Beautiful, serene, and utterly inhuman, with eyes like empty corridors and stretching into infinite shadow. And she was smiling. They found me the next morning when the road cleared and the day shift arrived. Catatonic, they said. Non-responsive. A case of extreme exhaustion and stress, exacerbated by isolation. I hear them discussing my case sometimes, these new doctors. They don't understand why I won't speak, why I flinch when the intercom crackles. But I won't, I'll never speak again. Because they don't see her standing in the corner of my room each night watching, still smiling,